Meanwhile, when Vinci Morg heard a scream from the other exam area, he immediately thought that Professor Sadie was hurting the students again. Without hesitation, he pushed open the tightly locked exam door and shouted angrily, "Professor Sadie, why the hell did you lock the door? Are you hurting the students again?" But before he could finish speaking, he fell silent when he saw that it wasn't a ruined student in front of him, but a severely injured Professor Sadie kneeling on the ground. This scene immediately made Vinci Morg realize who the source of the scream was. At the same time, seeing his badly injured friends, Tutor rushed to their side. At that moment, Vinci Morg asked in confusion, "What exactly happened here?" Hearing this, I casually responded, "During the test, I got startled by a clone charging at me and shot an arrow. The arrow grazed the clone and ended up hitting Professor Sadie's eye." Vinci Morg didn't doubt me at all. The only thing that shocked him was that a student could cause such a fate for Professor Sadie. In his mind, he simply attributed everything to karma. In the end, I finished the second midterm exam with a total score of 11 points. Before long, dollars arrived. The holy light healing was performed on the unconscious PG and the others, but she never expected that the injuries of the three would be so severe. Sinclair suffered severe internal injuries from magical backlash. Sancho had multiple fractures throughout his body, and PG had his jawbone shattered. For the students taking the exam, these were no ordinary injuries. They could easily be considered as premeditated harm. At this point, Tutor worriedly asked, "Senior Dollars, are they going to be okay?" In response, Dollars said, "Thanks to you calling for help quickly, they should all recover without after effects." Hearing this, Tutor and Bianca felt a sense of relief. After healing the injuries of PG and the others, Dollars walked toward the next injured person. Although she was very reluctant to deal with this culprit, she couldn't avoid her duty. "Professor Sadie, let me see your wound. Once your wound heals, the student council will report you for excessively assaulting students. We will request a disciplinary hearing." Professor Sadie, on the other hand, just chuckled. "So you're the proud saint of the Quo Vadis family." At this point, Dollars ordered Professor Sadie to show her wound. However, Professor Sadie ignored the pain and actually pulled the arrow out of her eye. "I don't need your help. You can punish me for what happened. Do whatever you think is right, but you better look forward to the day my punishment ends," including the one who roams the nights of the Imperial City. A lot of people have been making things quite entertaining for me lately. As Professor Sadie passed by me, she also asked, "Your name is Vakir, right? I'll remember your name. We'll meet again." The scene shifted, and a week passed by quickly. The long midterm exams finally came to an end. In the end, Sinclair took first place in the exam, followed by Granui in second and Tutor in third. Sancho came in seventh, I ranked 21st, and PG placed 199th. The students who lost a lot of points after encountering Professor Sadie during the attack test were fortunately allowed to retake it, thanks to the faculty. With this recovered score, Sinclair became the top-ranked first-year student. However, everyone's attention wasn't on the first place. It was directed at someone else. After all, I was the student who caused a fatal blow to Professor Sadie. It was not just a first-year achievement. Even students from previous years had never managed to hurt Professor Sadie, not even a little. At this moment, the other students keep on muttering, "Not just a hit, he took out her eye." Serves her right. It feels like the trauma I got from that demon is all gone. Considering what he did during the defense exam, shouldn't we call him a hero? To this, I was simply speechless. Is this what I get for acting emotionally? I didn't want to get involved. After all, it would affect the actions of my other identity. But when I saw my friends getting hurt, I could not help but act. Just then, a girl who admired me suddenly approached, holding a love letter. "Actually, I've liked you since the beginning of the semester." But before she could finish confessing, the love letter was snatched by Lowborough, who came charging at full speed, and right in front of the girl, he tore it to shreds. "Who do you think you are to block our way? Are you really blocking our way just to suck up to some lowly commoner? Do you all want to die? Get lost." Immediately afterward, the triplets were satisfied, their hair sticking up as a sign of pride for having protected their leech. Under their escort, I successfully arrived at the newspaper club. But when I pushed open the door and walked in, I found Dollars staring seriously at the freshly printed newspaper. So, I seized the opportunity to bring up a topic. "Why are you frowning like that while reading?" As soon as those words were spoken, Dollars was somewhat surprised. She was so absorbed in her thoughts that she hadn't even noticed I had entered. Has a new Hound article come out? The destruction of the Central Clock Tower, a landmark of the Imperial capital, and the damage to the Royal Memorial Cemetery. They're blaming it all on the Hound. There's no evidence, yet they're blaming the Hound for everything. Upon hearing this, I felt that everything happening now was rather strange. I had forgotten that her support was backing my other identity, which was even more reassuring than I had imagined. I truly had to deal with these matters personally. After all, the clock tower is something the people of the capital look at several times a day. It's a symbol of order and peace. Destroying the city's landmark could be the act of someone with deep resentment towards society. This guy might not be just trying to copy me. Moreover, the Royal Memorial Cemetery is the suspected area mentioned in Cindy Wendy's report yesterday, the place where informants have gone missing. Since the copycat criminal needs to be dealt with as well, I should go investigate. Soon after, when night fell, I changed into my Hound outfit once again. Then, I arrived at the location of the Royal Memorial Cemetery where the Empire's heroes rest. At that moment, I realized that this cemetery is near the orphanage where Dantalion used to hide. Whether that's a coincidence or not, I'll find out once I get there. On top of that, regarding Cindy Wendy's missing informants, I should be able to figure things out all at once. At this point, I discovered several zombies in the graveyard. Although I didn't know what these people did when they were alive to become zombies, I know that some of them are definitely Cindy Wendy's informants. To deal with the newly emerged zombies, I took out the long-forgotten Divine Bow Anubis. It's convenient since it can split apart and is easy to carry, but I can't believe Ian added such mechanism to a divine relic. With that, I pulled the bowstring with force, and in an instant, my magic formed an arrow, sending the heads of several zombies into pieces without a single effort. The effect was absolutely amazing. It's definitely on a different level compared to the standard bows I used during the midterms. Unknowingly, while I was praising Anubis, I suddenly smelled a strange odor. This is definitely the scent of demonic energy, but it's strangely weaker compared to a normal demon scent. It's like its foul stench has been diluted by something. As for the source of the smell, it came from the orphanage where Dantalion had been hiding before. So, to investigate further, I decided to head there and find out what was going on. Something sinister was definitely taking place there, and sure enough, the situation was just as I had imagined. A magic circle was being cast there. In the next moment, something began to materialize from it. Dantalion, that despicable thief dared to steal you. I'm sorry, Rose. I lost you again. I promise, I will never lose someone precious to me again. You should know, the 8 elite corps is Seir. At this moment, the girl murmured. Seir's ability to locate who she wants to find is useful. I finally found you, Rose. But no matter what I do, I can't find the other person. In order to control all the power that I acquired from the demon contract, must I walk through death's door completely? After all, I'm only a half-blood. I need to hurry and gain full control of Seir's power. Suddenly, a thick aura of killing intent pulled her thoughts back. Seeing this, she immediately stepped forward, shielding Rose. At this moment, I drew my bow to full draw and said, answer my questions. If you move a finger, you die. If you say a word that's not an answer to my question, you die. You smell like both a human and demon. Which are you? Upon hearing this, she replied that she was both a demon and a human. I then asked, that woman is Dantalion's underling, Geronto. She should be dead now. How come she's still alive? To this, she replied, she's not Dantalion's underling. Dantalion stole her from me. As for the final question, I asked her if Seir is the name of the elite corps she contracted with. What if I say yes? With those words, her gaze suddenly radiated killing intent, but the next second, what awaited her was a merciless arrow. Fortunately, she reacted in time and tilted her head to dodge, and the arrow grazed strands of her hair. Once I knew that the person before me was a 10 elite corpse, the only solution I could offer was to kill her right here. Meanwhile, as she sensed the murderous intent approaching, she immediately cast a spell, summoning a group of skeleton monsters from the realm of death. However, this only made her feel even more distressed. She turned the children's corpses into undead. At this moment, seeing that the opponent was slightly distracted, I quickly drew my bow and shot an arrow. With a loud explosion, the group of skeletons shattered into pieces. On the other hand, she seemed to want to use this opportunity to escape, but little did she know that her childish thoughts had already been seen through. I quickly closed the distance and said, don't think you'll die a quick death. Seeing this, she blocked my attack, causing an explosion. Then, she had no choice but to descend back to the ground and look for another chance to escape. But before that, she suddenly asked, what's your connection with the Balak tribe? Why do you know their archery skills? In response, I admitted my connection with the Balak tribe, saying that I was a hunter of them. Little did I know, after hearing these words, she instantly became enraged. Then you must have been there on that night. I'm going to kill you, you barbarian. Then, a magical projectile was thrown toward me. Seeing this, I quickly crouched and sidestepped to avoid the attack. However, as I got closer to her, I could feel the presence of a living person within her. But from what I knew, the 10 elite corpses don't take over human corpses. Unexpectedly, just as I was thinking, my abdomen was pierced by several sharp spikes she launched, and seeing how easily I was about to be defeated, she scoffed, you lowly barbarian. You sure talked big, but look at you now. However, before her arrogance could last, the next moment, her face was left in shock. Naturally, this was to be expected, as my previously wounded body instantly healed as if nothing had happened. At this moment, while putting Anubis away, I was sure of one thing. After clashing with you a few times, I understand it now. You're a lot weaker compared to the other elite corpses because you're just a half-demon. There's no need for me to converse with you anymore. Prepare to die. As for her, she summoned a higher-level monster from the realm of death, a Frankenstein golem. You're the one who's going to die, barbarian. Immediately after, it swung its fist toward me with great force. However, for her, this Frankenstein golem was just a distraction. The real attack is her most skilled fire magic. She would use her strongest move to settle this once and for all. As for me, I summoned the Beelzebub, and with a simple slash, I cut down the approaching monster. But at that moment, her expression suddenly became dazed when she saw the red aura, something only the Baskervilles possessed. To confirm my identity, she quickly said, wait, but it was already too late. I had already used the 7th sword technique of Baskerville to meet her attack. In the collision of our strongest moves, the outcome was quickly decided. As the dust cleared, I had only sustained minor injuries, while the enemy's body seemed to suffer from magical backlash, unable to stand up again. But there's one thing that puzzles me. Why did she shout wait earlier? Just then, she suddenly said, "Don't leave me." Upon hearing this, I asked, "Do you have a reason as to why you struck a deal with a demon? All deaths have a story behind them." Seeing that she didn't reply, I swung my sword to kill her. Unbeknownst to me, in the next second, the red-haired girl suddenly stepped forward and blocked the fatal strike. This left me utterly shocked. Normally, the undead possess a strong jealousy for what they didn't have, giving them a temperament that makes them blindly bite and extort from the living. While this doesn't apply if their master possesses a strong will and absolute control, once the master loses consciousness, the undead can no longer be controlled. But this one was different. Just like the demon behind her, she had no will to fight. Just then, behind me, a glaring light suddenly appeared, accompanied by the sound of armor clanking and a voice of a woman shouting, "Over there." If I remember correctly, this voice belonged to Professor Sadie. It seems the commotion I caused earlier disturbed her, as she was leading the guards. At the same time, the red-haired girl took advantage of my momentary distraction to cast a teleportation spell. Although I quickly regained focus and swung Beelzebub toward the demon's heart, she once again stepped forward and blocked the attack with her back. This directly led to the success of the teleportation spell, allowing the demon to escape, which left me feeling frustrated. Meanwhile, Professor Sadie shouted excitedly from above, "Night Hound, reveal yourself." But when she arrived at the place below to check, the Night Hound she was supposed to capture had already vanished. Feeling like she had been played, Professor Sadie's expression immediately changed, and she kicked the guard beside her, saying, "Because you were so freaking slow, we got here late." Even though the mission failed, Professor Sadie had an unexpected gain, which was the disguise mask left behind by the Night Hound. As for me, the reason I managed to escape unnoticed was because I put on the mask of beastly heart picaresque and quickly made my way to a relatively safe location. The scene shifted, and the next morning quickly arrived. At that moment, the vice president, Anna, rushed into the newspaper club and excitedly announced, "The Academy's big event that comes after the exams, the festive season, is about to begin. And this year, the festival's theme for the newspaper club is the haunted house." Sinclair was very pleased to hear this. It's Halloween, and now that we're finally free from those tough exams, that will definitely get a lot of attention. Dollars, who was standing next to Sinclair, seemed a bit excited, as if she was imagining something in her head. At this moment, Bianca asked in confusion, "But doesn't the Academy Festival have that tradition?" As for PG, he quickly responded, "That tradition has been long-standing at Colosseo Academy, and even the professors aren't exempt from it." Suddenly, Anna took out 2 boxes, interrupting the conversation. "Now, let's draw lots to see what each person will dress up as." But seeing her behavior, it was clear she was doing it on purpose. As for me, I was still in a state where my mind was not focused on the matter at hand. My thoughts were stuck on last night's battle. Not killing the 8th corpse when she couldn't even use half her powers was a very big mistake. When I was fighting Andromalius, I had to receive the aid of the Baskerville family's hounds, and I was with the Saintus when I fought Dantalion. I don't know if I, a top-ranking graduator, can fight the 8 corpse by myself when she's at full power. In the end, in order to hunt the demons one-on-one, I need to completely learn the Baskerville's incomplete 7th technique and reach the level of Sword Master. The 10th technique, Lurking Ambush, calls the 6th Fang and the 7th Fang ambush horizontal twin wisdom teeth. One must understand the odd principle between the 6th and 7th techniques and be able to use the ultimate killing technique. The theory behind the 6th and 7th techniques is written in the swordsmanship book. In order to overcome the wall of the 6th technique, one must abandon all human emotions, and in order to learn the 7th technique, one must gain one's human emotions back. I still don't understand why one needs to recover the emotions they just abandoned. This needs a completely different approach compared to the entry-level graduator core training methods, where one learned how to kill their emotions and turn into bloodhounds. And another thing that confuses me is, how did Hugo become a sword master? Did he really break through just like that? Suddenly, my thoughts were interrupted by Dollar's surprised voice. She had drawn the lot that said Night Hound. Since the Quo Vadis family had recently suffered a severe attack from the Night Hound, Anna felt sorry and offered to let Dollars redraw the lot, treating the first one as invalid. Upon hearing this, Dollars replied that she must follow the rules of the game, and as the president, she should not have any privileges. But in reality, she was secretly overjoyed and saw this as fate. After Dollars finished drawing, it was my turn. "Vikir, it's your turn. Hurry up and pick. You're the center of attention." Although I was unwilling, I had no choice but to participate. But when I saw what I drew, my expression suddenly changed. Seeing this, Bianca and the others hurriedly asked what I got. As for me, I didn't expect to draw this of all things. Soon, the time for the festival arrived. Colosseo Academy was bustling like never before. At this moment, in front of a stall, Tudor, dressed as a demon queen, was enthusiastically using his looks to attract customers. As for Sancho, he didn't seem to change much, only styling his hair into a more mature slickback style. But when Sinclair appeared, she was truly stunning. The vampire count she portrayed was just too seductive. On the other hand, PG had dressed up as a fairy, but his outfit was so revealing that it made him appear shy and unnatural. Because of this, the students thought he was a girl and started asking for his name. However, Bianca, who was dressed as Frankenstein, stepped stepped in. You can't hit on our members. At that moment, a pair of jade feet and red high heels walked towards Dollars. When Dollars, dressed as the Night Hound, turned around, she was surprised to see that the owner of those feet was actually Professor Vency Morg. His purpose was actually to ask Dollars why she dressed as the Night Hound. Although it's a festival, you should know that outfit can easily cause unnecessary trouble, and as the center of attention, you should not emulate such shameless criminal. To this, Dollars responded firmly to Vency Morg, I like this outfit, and the Night Hound is not wrong. Upon hearing this, Vency Morg decided not to press the matter further. He knew that even though he was an academic advisor, he didn't have the right to forcefully interfere with his students. However, he kindly reminded her to be cautious and not to end up harming herself. Meanwhile, Tutor was confused as to why Professor Vency Morg was at their stall. PG explained, during the festival, professors dress up and visit the stalls of their classes and clubs to help boost profits. Vency Morg overheard them, and judging by the look on his face, he seemed quite unhappy. At that moment, Dollars came over holding a serving of fried chicken and a plate of fried potatoes that Vency Morg had ordered. Seeing this, Vency Morg noticed that the quality of the ingredients is poor, and the dishes are made by someone who isn't certified in food and safety. Reluctantly, he tried some, expecting it to taste awful. However, the next second, he was completely stunned. The exquisite smoky flavor and savory taste emerged from the meat when it was torn, while the potatoes from the Morg family's region released a rich flavor as they softly broke apart. After Vency Morg finished commenting, he couldn't help but wonder who had made such delicious food. After all, if an outside chef had been hired, it would be against the rules of the festival. Hearing this, Dollars gestured toward the kitchen and said, of course not. One of our members is cooking them. I'm sure you know him very well. And that person, dressed in a witch's outfit, is none other than me. The academy has a long tradition. Women had to dress as men, and men had to dress as women. Fortunately, wearing a witch's outfit, I didn't need to show up much, since I was responsible for the kitchen. At that moment, because of my culinary skills and beauty, the once quiet stall became overcrowded, to the point that Tudor and Sinclair could no longer move freely to take orders. To be honest, this brings back memories. I finally get the chance to cook the food I used to eat on the battlefield. During the fall, proper food was hard to find. So, in order for the warriors on the front lines to survive, there was a need to make anything taste good. Processing inedible ingredients to make them edible, knowing which parts of a poisonous vegetable need to be cut off, and learning how to make spoiled meat fresh again are just a few things that my comrades and I experimented with a lot. For instance, the potatoes developed by the Morg family smell like dirt and taste terrible. On top of that, their texture feels like chewing sand. But if you chop the potatoes finely and season them with salt and vinegar, then stir-fry them over high heat with mandrake leaves and sabak tree fruits, the unpleasant smell disappears completely, bringing out their crispy texture and sweetness. Meanwhile, both Dollars and Vency Morg were captivated by my beauty, but soon snapped out of it. Just then, Bianca arrived in the kitchen. What's going on? Why are you in the kitchen? Vikir, you're too talented to be wasted in the kitchen. You should be outside attracting customers. As soon as she finished speaking, Tudor immediately retorted anxiously, no way. Vikir is needed in the kitchen. Do you know how many people have already fallen for his cooking? Are you kidding me? If he steps outside with that face, we'll double our profit. Little did they know, as the two argued incessantly, a diner dressed in a magician's outfit was looking at me. It seems I've come to the right place. The moment he put down his utensils, I felt an overwhelmingly familiar aura. When I turned around and looked at the source of it, I realized it was Osiris, my elder brother. Afterward, Osiris and I stepped outside the stall for a private conversation. Regarding his coincidental visit during the festival, Osiris expressed nostalgia. I remember I also dressed as a woman when I was a student at the academy. I don't think I was as pretty as you are. What brings you here, brother? It's a brother's duty to come when his younger sibling is in trouble. After saying this, Osiris smiled slightly, and I really wanted to see you. As he spoke, something strange was wriggling under his clothes. The next second, a child dressed in a pink bunny outfit suddenly rushed up and hugged me. It was Pomerian, who had been hiding inside Osiris' clothes. I miss you, uncle. Why didn't you come home? Pomerian really wanted to see you. Father gave me a special leave so I could bring Pomerian here to the academy. To this, I was utterly speechless. So the heir of the family is being used as an escort. Upon hearing this, Osiris explained, recently, Pomerian has been holding all the authority at home. Last month, Pomerian said she liked the blood bean chocolate, so father wiped out an entire monster-infested area on the western front and turned it into a cacao farm. That same Pomerian staged a protest, saying she wanted to see you. After a grueling hunger strike that lasted 2 whole meals, father permitted her to visit you. Did you know that Pomerian became depressed after you left? It's been so long since I've seen her smile. At that moment, I froze in surprise. Could Osiris really make an expression like that? If regaining emotions is necessary to reach the level of a sword master, he may not realize it himself, but this is really good for him. Before long, since they came looking for me as they arrived at the academy, Pomerian was tired and fell asleep. Osiris hoped that while they were here, I could spend some quality time with Pomerian. Then, he mentioned that the trade I prepared is progressing well with our alliance with the Mesamadunaro family. But actually, I had heard this news in advance. Before I entered the academy, I created the the Truth Investigation Committee for Past Events. Osiris Le Baskerville, who is in charge of that, has uncovered the misunderstandings and wrongdoings between the Baskerville family and the Mesamedunaro family. As a result, the Baskerville family officially apologized to the Mesamedunaro family. I hear that in the process, the old Baskervilles who participated in the wicked scheme were beheaded. Due to this event, Cindy Wendy seems to have softened a bit and joined forces with the Baskerville family. Whether she truly forgave the Baskervilles or not, only she knows. At that moment, Osiris handed me a letter and a ring. That ring was found near the place where the demon that took over Set's body died. It seems to be a ring with special abilities, so Father told me to give it to you since you contributed the most. While he was speaking, I noticed that this ring allows the user to use the barrier that Andromalius once used. The moment Osiris told me the letter was written by Hugo, I was utterly shocked. I couldn't believe that Hugo would write a letter to his son. Surprising, isn't it? But don't worry, I got one too. After saying this, he excused himself to take Pomerian back to sleep. After a brief wave goodbye to them, I opened the letter that Hugo wrote for me. The letter read as follows. To my son Vakir, by the time you read this letter, I know you are also struggling with the same concerns about reaching the level of a sword master, just as Osiris once did. After reading this part, I was utterly shocked. Could it be that Father noticed that my level is at the highest rank graduator? Then, I continued reading the rest of the letter. You must be stuck at the 7th Fang right now since you are still a highest rank graduator. In order to execute the 7th technique perfectly, you need to reach the level of a sword master. So I have written down the process I went through in my journey to reach that level. Just as I finished reading the letter, my emotions became uncontrollable. Is this the so-called process you wanted to tell me about? On the other hand, since I was not working in the kitchen, the business at the stall quickly died down, making Bianca, who was still enthusiastically attracting customers, bored out of her mind. But just then, her face suddenly flushed as two red-haired women passed by. She seemed captivated by their beauty. It turned out those women were Rose and the masked woman whom I had fought recently. At that moment, Rose was being treated to all sorts of delicious food by the masked woman. Is it good? At the same time, the masked woman also began to realize that today seemed to be Halloween. If that incident hadn't occurred, if I hadn't been forced to make a pact with a demon, would I have entered this academy as well? Could I have spent a wonderful time with him? But before that, she still needed to confirm the Night Hound's true identity, because that night, when he asked her if Seir was the name of the demon she had made a contract with, she realized he knew about the existence of the 10 elite corpses. So, to meet the Night Hound again, she chose to come to the festival. She felt that as long as she appeared in a crowded place, she could easily lure him over. At that moment, her thoughts were pulled back to that night. The red sword energy displayed by the Night Hound when he slashed the attacking golem, and the red light she saw when she fled that battle were almost identical. Thus, to confirm whether her intuition was right, she needed to remove the Night Hound's mask. Yet even so, she was still very anxious. If it really is him, would he dislike me seeing how I am now? I wonder how much he's changed. Just then, a woman wearing a headscarf suddenly said to her, "Stop thinking about it. Stop these painful thoughts. I'll handle those thoughts for you." She was Seir, the 8th elite corpse, dwelling in her body. But seeing Seir forcibly entering her mental space, she immediately rebuked angrily, "You are clearly violating our contract. The contract explicitly states, I borrow your power, and only if I die does my body fully belong to you, and that you would be allowed control for only an hour of your choosing. So stop what you're doing and get lost. Don't think you can control me as you please." In contrast, Seir, although silent for a long while after listening, soon revealed a sinister smile and removed her disguise to show her true form. "Do you think you can accomplish anything with your own power? Your loved ones disappeared, yet you can't do anything. You even hurt your uncle, who loves you the most. The only thing you've ever done alone is ruin everything. On the contrary, thanks to the power you borrowed from me, you were able to find your sister. Without me, you would." Seir's words were not yet finished when the masked woman suddenly cut her off. "So what? The person I most want to meet has still not been found. The main reason I accepted your contract was to retrieve that guy's body. But in the end, you still haven't found him, even after searching every corner of the Red-Black Mountain. So please stop bothering me now. I've finally found a clue to see him again." Upon hearing this, Seir was greatly shocked. She never expected that the host she parasitized had such strong willpower. But suddenly, Seir's thoughts were sharply pulled back. She felt a special aura generated by the deaths of countless demons, and the source of the aura was just ahead at a nearby stall. "We need to get out of here. That disgusting aura belongs to a demon hunter." On the contrary, the masked woman had her own plans. After all, this meant that the person she was looking for was there. Then, the masked woman suddenly dashed towards that direction. Seeing this, Seir yelled at her not to seek her own death, but the masked woman ignored her. Even if divine punishment were to fall, it would not stop her determination to meet the Night Hound. Before long, she arrived at the source of the aura, but the next second, she was stunned. What's going on? How could the Night Hound possibly be a woman? This obviously wasn't realistic, as she vaguely remembered that at that time the Night Hound had black hair and a voice that did not sound like a woman's. Thus, she immediately concluded the person before her was just someone who dressed as the Night Hound. Suddenly, she emitted a terrifying magic power, and the next second, she fiercely smashed her hand on the ground, instantly instantly enveloping a 100-meter radius with a massive magic circle. Following that came hordes of skeletons summoned from the realm of the dead. At this moment, Bianca raised a question. Isn't necromancy strictly forbidden by the Empire? How can that woman master it so proficiently? On the other hand, the crowd was also frightened and fled in panic. However, these skeletons only rampaged for a while before they were quickly purified by a massive column of light. This was the divine power wielded by Dolores. Members of the newspaper club, listen up. Ensure the safety of every citizen. As for Anna, Dolores assigned her another task. Quickly report this incident to the professor. After arranging the tasks, Dolores also threw herself into the battle. After all, no one was more suited to deal with the undead than her. On the other hand, the masked woman yelled at Dolores, "Get out of my way, you imposter. The one I want to see is the real Night Hound." Upon hearing this, Dolores immediately questioned, "Why do you want to meet him?" Hearing the word him, the masked woman realized that the other party seemed to really know the person she was looking for, so she asked without hesitation, "What is your relationship with the Night Hound?" Dolores responded without hesitation, "I'm his soulmate." After hearing this, the masked woman's soul was completely disturbed. "Is that so? Then I'll tear that soul apart into tiny pieces and turn you into an undead soldier." As for Dolores, she swore never to let anyone harm the Night Hound. But at that moment, a powerful wind magic suddenly came, easily helping Dolores deal with several skeletons. Only after seeing the face of the person did Dolores realize that it was Sinclair. But as the senior, she naturally couldn't let her junior participate in dangerous actions. "It's dangerous. You should evacuate too." Sinclair refused. She didn't know the reason, but she felt she had to join the fight no matter what. But just then, a huge fireball suddenly smashed towards them. Seeing this, Sinclair immediately deployed a shield spell. However, she knew that the opponent's power was unfathomable, able to cast such intense flame magic while using necromancy. At that time, the masked woman shouted, "I just need to meet the Night Hound. If you don't want to die, call the Night Hound." Unbeknownst to them, just as Sinclair's shield was about to shatter, I finally arrived. The next second, I charged toward the person casting the spell, forcefully stopping this one-sided farce. In contrast, the masked woman, upon seeing the person attacking her was the one she had been desperately searching for, her face immediately overflowed with an expectant smile. "We've finally met again, Night Hound. I have something to say to you personally." But before she could finish, the force of the clash had already blown the confrontation miles away. Meanwhile, at Dolores's side, she stared blankly at everything in front of her, lost in thought. Although she couldn't see clearly who had saved them, she knew it was the Night Hound. If that was the case, then the Night Hound's purpose in moving the location was simply to prevent the people from getting involved. After realizing this, Dolores began to pray devoutly. She really did not want the Night Hound to be harmed at all. At this moment, a relieved smile still dominated the masked woman's face. "There must have been some misunderstanding between us, but I quickly dismissed it. If you are one of the 10 elite corpses, then you shouldn't exist in this world." Hearing this, the masked woman was terrified. "Can you not rush things? Let's sit down and have a proper talk." However, my response was extremely decisive. "This time I will definitely not make the same mistake as before." Just as my words fell, a flurry of armored footsteps suddenly came from a nearby location. Seeing this, the masked woman suggested changing the location. Hearing the opponent's reminder, I told her it wasn't necessary because her ally had left behind a gift. At this moment, as I activated the power of the ring, a bright purple light emitted around me. In the next second, my opponent and I were transported to the barrier space the ring had created. Upon seeing the statues, I realized it was the likeness of Osiris as a child and Hugo when he was young. If my guess is right, this barrier space is based on the mental consciousness of Set, who was taken over by Andromalius. Meanwhile, as the masked woman looked around her surroundings, all the doubts that once lingered in her heart were gone. As expected, "You really are him." So, she made a request to me. "Please, could you take off your mask? I need to confirm something." She hoped the Night Hound would listen, as she couldn't remove her own mask or reveal her true identity because of the contract she signed with the demon. But just then, her thoughts were pulled back by the incoming blade. But even though she dodged the attack in time, due to the series of attacks, she was at a disadvantage. What she never expected was, the person she had been searching for had become so terrifyingly strong that she simply couldn't handle him. Unsurprisingly, she was soon seriously injured. Left with no choice, she had to compromise and borrow power from the demon residing within her. The next second, Seir appeared and asked, "How much do you need? Give me half of your power." Hearing this, Seir's heart was blooming with joy. "Then give me half of your day." At this moment, the masked woman's eyes looked fiercely determined. "I don't care. Take it." As the pact between them was established, my feet were suddenly seized by the undead creatures from the realm of the dead. "If you refuse to obey and take off the mask for me, I'll have to resort to force." But unbeknownst to her, just after she ordered the undead creatures to attack, the next second, a sword slash came, instantly killing them once again. Then, I swiftly chopped down the rest. Seeing this, the masked woman panicked. Forced by circumstance, she could only continue to compromise. "Seir, give me more power." With that, she had only 8 hours left. Seir reminded her of this fact, but to the masked woman, it already seemed meaningless. Today she had to remove the mask of her opponent no matter what. Who knew that even with the demon's power boosted, the bone dragon dragon summoned by her still could not dominate the scene and was easily intercepted by her opponent, so she chose to add more power, reducing the time she controlled her body from 8 hours to 4 hours. Meanwhile, as I continued to cut down the attacking undead creatures, I suddenly realized the enemy I faced seemed to have never been serious about attacking from the start. In other words, her intent was only to try to bind me, but what was her reason for doing so? And since I was still effortlessly breaking out of the encirclement multiple times, the masked woman had to continue borrowing power from Seir, compressing the time down to 3 hours. This delighted Seir immensely, as she had been waiting just for this moment. Now, only 2 hours away from her plan to take over the host, as the masked woman's power was boosted again, the undead creatures she summoned were completely transformed. With a mere clench of her fist, she achieved her true goal. However, the toll on her body was too great, yet she didn't complain, because at that moment, right above her gaze was exactly what she had been determined to do all along. Now, stay still. I'm going to take off your mask. But just then, I escaped from the encirclement of the undead creatures and annihilated them all. Seeing this, the masked woman was completely dumbfounded. You're already badly injured. How can you continue to fight like this? What have you been through all these years to make you hate demons so much? Please, if you are who I think you are, recognize me. The next second, she conjured a solid wall built of heaps of bones. Let me ask you one thing. The reason your attacks aren't meant to harm me, but to restrain me, the reason you told me to take off my mask, and the reason you have such sad eyes behind that mask, is it because you have something to tell me, but you can't say it? And the moment those words left my mouth, I punched through the bone wall in front of me, and with a flick of my fingers, the mask on my opponent's face shattered. I also thought back then, what's the use of this wall if I can just go around it? It's been a long time, Kimu. You've changed a lot. About 3 years ago, Kimu locked herself in her room every day, neither eating nor drinking, and the hallways were filled with the sound of her crying. Therefore, the maids of the Morgue family couldn't help but gossip when passing by. They say she's blaming herself for that incident. That day, the family members tried to rescue Miss Kimu from the barbarians. Some were injured, some died. But I think, even if everyone except Sir Adolphe died on the battlefield, it wouldn't justify Miss Kimu giving up on herself like this. The only possible explanation is that, at the time, Miss Kimu's fiancé sacrificed his life to buy them a moment to escape from that monster. But the dead cannot be revived, and they still hope their master would soon recover, even if just for the sake of simple revenge. Little did they know, while they felt sympathy and regret for her, a figure suddenly approached them quickly. The next second, the three of their heads were firmly trapped in a water sphere, clearly intending to drown them. Just when they least expected it, the caster turned out to be Adolphe Morgue. A servant's virtue should be their discretion, yet you all use concern as an excuse to spread gossip about your master. After saying this, Adolphe released the three from their confinement. If you let your tongue slip again, I will see to it that it is cut off. After dealing with the riffraff, Adolphe walked straight to Kimu's room door. After a brief greeting, he then pushed open the door and walked in. At that moment, seeing the dark environment around him and his niece sobbing under the covers, Adolphe's emotions were incredibly complex. He sat by the bed and softly comforted her. Kimu, I heard you haven't been eating. Your mother is deeply worried. No sooner had Adolphe finished speaking than Kimu responded, how can I eat when I'm the only left alive? If I hadn't been foolish enough to get captured by the barbarians back then, if I had tried to stop Vakir from trying to fight that monster alone, Vakir wouldn't have died. First I lost Rose, and now Vakir too. It's all my fault. Listening to her niece's self-blame, Adolphe didn't know how to respond for a moment. All he could think of was to give that broken heart a warm embrace. You must pull yourself together. Don't give up on your future so easily. Even though they are gone, you need to live well for their sake too. It is the duty of the living to carry on the lives of the dead. Hearing this, Kimu seemed to awaken from a dream, no longer crying. Do you mean to say that Rose and Vakir wouldn't want to see me like this today? Yes, exactly. And with that affirmative answer from Adolphe, Kimu's entire demeanor instantly transformed. She began aimlessly searching through drawers for research tools, then picked up a pen and started drawing a magic circle on paper. She muttered to herself, if the thermodynamic state function of life is the same, then just by slightly modifying the calculation methods and order, hundreds of billions of different results can be extracted. If I could access the negative dimension and draw upon its entropy, and then substitute the quotient and remainder of the positive dimension in an equivalent exchange format. But before she could finish, Kimu suddenly became agitated. I can't think properly without energy. Uncle, please prepare some food. Before long, after learning of her daughter's situation from Adolphe, Morgue immediately dropped her work and rushed home, prepared to properly counsel her daughter at the dinner table. I heard you were very worried because I wasn't eating, mother. It had been several days since my daughter last held a spoon. Of course, I was worried. Upon hearing this, Kimu suddenly exclaimed, then I won't worry you anymore, so please grant my request. But when Adolphe heard that Kimu intended to use Morgue military power to search the deep forest, he immediately became restless. He still wanted to persuade his niece not to act rashly, but his sister simply didn't want to refuse the request. Wanting the Morgue military power is fine, but only if you promise not to skip meals. Meanwhile, Adolphe quickly interjected, sister, aren't you being a bit too hasty? Upon hearing this, Lespain explained, my daughter still has some something she can do. Giving up wouldn't be easy, so the only way is to let her face that decision herself. After Lespain's words fell, Kimu was happily prepared to eat. Seeing this, Adolf felt relieved. However, the next second, Kimu suddenly showed symptoms of anorexia. Just a small piece of meat, and her body had a severe adverse reaction. Adolf saw this and quickly got up to inquire about Kimu's condition, while also instructing the servants to quickly remove the food from the table and prepare something more suitable for her. But since Kimu had already secured the opportunity to search for her fiancé, how could she possibly give up easily? Returning to the dinner table, she swore today she would eat all the food here to the last crumb. At this moment, Kimu was eating painfully. At the same time, her thoughts returned to that moment. Those self-blaming words constantly echoed in her mind. She believed that she deserved all this. Her loved one should not have died because of her. So Kimu felt that even if it meant trading lives, she was willing to do so. Please wait for me a bit longer, Fakir. But it seems that Day's decision couldn't make Kimu's wishes come true. Not to mention the body of her fiancé. Not even a shred of his clothes was found. So after trying everything to no avail, Kimu only had one last viable plan, which was to join the Dark Hall, an organization hated across the continent for studying forbidden black magic. At this moment, the person sitting in the high seat is the head of the Dark Hall, Snake Morgue. Seeing the heir of a hostile family step into this place alone, he was also full of puzzlement as he inquired about Kimu's purpose. To this, Kimu responded with a smile that was already twisted. I am leaving the Light Hall and wish to join the Dark Hall. This statement stunned Snake Morgue. After all, the Light Hall represents the family's official power, while their Dark Hall operates in secrecy, studying and experimenting with dark magic. You do understand what it means to join the Dark Hall, don't you? Who knew Kimu would respond so decisively? I'm prepared to live my life hiding in the shadows, abandon my mother, my uncle, and my rights as the heir. However, Snake had long heard rumors of Fakir's death. Surely, you're not thinking of reviving this Fakir using necromancy, are you? Absolutely true. I am here to study the black magic that can bring people back to life. Kimu's words shocked Snake. You know that magic is explicitly banned by both the Morgue family and the Empire, yet you insist on using it. Thus, to prevent Kimu from implicating the Dark Hall, Snake hoped she would leave immediately. Then, I have no choice. I will simply continue learning on my own. Seeing that Kimu can control spirits, Snake was once again shocked. He really didn't expect Kimu to be able to self-learn black magic by her own power, and even saying she had pioneered a new realm of magic. Does this mean she's also a once-in-a-century genius like her? In the end, Snake agreed to let Kimu join the Dark Hall, but with one condition: whatever comes out of my mouth is absolute and cannot be disobeyed. Hearing this, Kimu knelt in submission. I don't care if I lose everything I have, as long as I can bring him back to life. Before long, deep inside the Morgue family's Dark Hall, there is a place that isn't monitored by the Empire or visible to the Morgue family. A space that only the members of the Dark Hall know about. An underground space that spans over 600 floors. And on the 666th floor, Kimu was training to use black magic. At that moment, she summoned an undead soldier. Seeing this, Snake was surprised. Even though it hadn't been long since Kimu embraced black magic, he could hardly believe she had already reached this level. At the same time, a swirl of emotions starts to sprout within Snake. Pride, jealousy, fear, affection, and sorrow. In that face so identical to her. What am I looking for? Why did I allow this child to join the Dark Hall? But just then, Kimu suddenly said, I'm still far from perfect. This isn't enough to fully resurrect the dead. Hearing this, Snake asked Kimu if she was really going to use resurrection magic. After all, not only is it hard to learn, but the chances of success are extremely low. And even if she succeeded by some miracle, there's still the risk that the one she resurrected might go berserk or become corrupt. To this, Kimu firmly replied, once I succeed, there's no need to worry anymore. The soul I'm trying to bring back is stronger than anyone's. At that moment, Snake found himself wondering, what exactly am I seeing in this girl? Meanwhile, Adolf went to Lespain, asking her if they shouldn't stop Kimu from leaving the Light Hall and joining the Dark Hall. Looking out the window, Lespain replied calmly, she hasn't made her final choice yet. I granted my daughter the freedom to go between the Light and Dark Halls to choose wisely. Still, Adolf was worried that Kimu was spending more time with Snake, but Lespain reassured him that Snake would not harm Kimu and was actually helping her. Adolf wanted to press further, but Lespain stopped him, forbidding him to talk about this matter again. On the other side, to help Kimu understand black magic better, Snake led her to the place where the Morgue family began, the mortuary. At that moment, Snake told Kimu that the name Morgue has been passed down since before humans even had the concept of family or nation. It belonged to an ancient bloodline. The Morgues mostly took in unidentified corpses, seeking out their relatives, perhaps because they spent so much time with the dead. At some point, members of the Morgue family were able to converse with the dead, and such individuals still appear to this day. Just like you, Kimu, the current heir. At this moment, when Snake told Kimu that black mages who seek the truth believe it can only be found beyond the door of death, Kimu came to a conclusion that if she wanted to understand black magic, she needed to become familiar with death. However, Snake dismissed that idea. You'd be doing nothing more than imitating a black mage by doing that. You must first be wary of death. Keep this in mind, heir. A true black mage keeps death at the greatest distance. Before understanding and growing familiar with death, understand and cherish life. A true black mage loves the living more than anyone, has compassion for all that is dying, and seeks to understand them deeply. After hearing this, Kimu realized that, unlike how the world sees black mages, they are actually more like great sages or saints. Just then, Kimu asked her master why he joined the Dark Hall. At first, Snake hesitated, but after thinking about Les Payne and Adolf in the Light Hall, he replied, "There is light, and there is shadow. If one of them disappears, the balance will collapse." A few days later, Kimu brought Snake a shocking good news. "Master Snake, look at this. A complete resurrection magic circle I developed through my own research." Seeing this, he was directly dumbfounded. Kimu's envisioned model was even more precise than the collections he had gathered over decades, truly perfect to the extreme. Moreover, black magic is about exploring the deepest depths of the abyss. Just how deep into the abyss did this girl look by herself to achieve her goal? At that moment, Kimu requested Snake's help in performing the ritual. "Do you really like this boy, Fakir?" After receiving Kimu's bright smile and a heartfelt yes, Snake seemed to find the reason why he had always been stagnant in the field of black magic. No matter how dark the abyss, his own bright shining heart should not be eroded by it. As for what follows, Snake decided to help Kimu perform the ritual. However, he felt something was off. Kimu hadn't found the corpse of the person she intended to resurrect. In response, Kimu used her connections to enlist the help of the Baskerville family and managed to obtain a few strands of my hair and some of my blood. She also gathered as many dead spirits as she could from the forest. With those fragments of the body, the soul fragments would respond. From there, she could sort through them. Afterward, Snake and Kimu started drawing the magic circle on the ground according to the model style of the magic circle. Have you heard of the ship of Theseus paradox? Even if he regains his body, memories, and personality, will he truly still be himself? That kind of philosophical thinking can wait until after we succeed, Master. At this moment, as the drawing of the magic circle was completed, Kimu was eager to begin immediately. Although Snake recognized how desperate she was, he questioned whether she was acting too hastily. Still, Kimu insisted she could wait no longer. She had to start as soon as possible to ease the pain in her heart. Immediately, both Kimu and Snake poured their mana into the magic circle. Thus, the experiment to resurrect the deceased Fakir officially began. As time passed, the mana began to leak, and dark currents surged within the magic circle. Seeing this, Snake quietly murmured to himself, "I believe this magic circle is truly flawless. Could this really become a milestone in the world of black magic?" But before his thoughts could settle, he was snapped back by a sudden burst of blood mist. Meanwhile, upon seeing that the summoned spirit shared the same red hue as the Baskervilles, Kimu instinctively believed this was the one she wanted to bring back. Overwhelmed by longing, Kimu rushed straight to the center of the magic circle without hesitation. But in the very next second, the unexpected happened. Kimu was struck head-on by a powerful magical explosion, and her body instantly suffered severe magical backlash. Snake knew that once this occurred, death was inevitable, and just as he feared, Kimu began to experience a life flashing before the eyes phenomenon, just steps away from crossing the gate of death. But as for why the experiment failed, Kimu couldn't figure it out even in her final moments. Could it be that Fakir had truly forsaken this world and found peace long ago? With this thought, Kimu's heart began to waver. If that's the case, then what's the point of everything I've done up to now? I think it'd be better if I just die. That would be easier. Just then, a large hand gently reached out and wiped away her tears. It was Snake. The truth is, I didn't join the Dark Hall because I wanted to. I was someone who could never belong beside my sister because I couldn't exist in the light. I had no choice but to live in the shadows. But when I saw you wear your heart on your sleeve, it made me think, if only I had been honest, if only I had the courage to challenge the impossible, maybe things could have turned out differently. And with that, Snake suddenly pushed Kimu. "Don't lose hope. Your master believes that one day, you will surely reunite with your beloved. As for this door of death in front of us, let me close it for you when they return to the real world." At that moment, Kimu had only sustained some serious injuries, but in her stead, Snake had died utterly. Before long, Kimu lost track of time. Her nerves were so tense that she became immobile, and in that moment, she felt utterly desperate, knowing no one would come to rescue her in this deep underground. Maybe I'd be better off dying like this. My master, who died in my place, would probably think it's ridiculous, but I've already tried everything. I don't have the will to live anymore. If there is something that I find unfortunate, it's that I couldn't meet him. But as she thought about this, Kimu felt it was quite good. Perhaps one day their meeting point would be in the realm of the dead. But just then, a mocking voice suddenly came from the darkness. "You look like you want to live." Hearing this, Kimu wondered if it was just a hallucination, but the voice firmly denied it. "I am no hallucination. I came here after feeling your longing. I've only read about them in books. But are you a demon?" "Yes, I am." "So you know about demons? Then this speeds things up. In exchange for me saving you with my power, make a deal with me." But Kimu directly refused. "I don't want to live anymore." However, the demon soon made Kimu change her mind. "From that magic circle over there, I can guess you're trying to resurrect someone. Is there someone you've lost that you want to see again? If so, you're in luck. That happens to be my specialty. I am Seir, the demon of the dead and decay. If you sign a contract with me, I can let you meet the person you wanted to resurrect." At that moment, Kimu remembered the words Snake said while pushing her away. One day, you will surely reunite with your beloved. She really still had a chance to resolve her issues. She thought she had done all she could, but if there's still a method she hasn't tried, she refuses to give up. Just like that, Kimu agreed to strike a deal with the demon Seir. The scene shifts, and Kimu had already returned to the main city of the Morgue family. At the same time, upon hearing the news, Adolf was both shocked and delighted. Kimu, do you know how worried I was? What happened to your hair? What have you been doing these past 10 days? Did Snake force you to do something? But to this, Kimu didn't want to respond directly. Passing by, she merely said, Uncle, I'm sorry. I'm a bit tired. I'm going back to my room now. Seeing this, Seir also didn't shy away from adding more. Is that really what you want? Ignoring your uncle just like that, even though it's been a while since you've seen him? Hearing this, Kimu coldly replied, Be quiet, Seir. If you don't prove your competence, I'm going to break off this contract. As for the terms of the contract, they are as follows. Demon Seir will lend Kimu a portion of its power to help her reunite with Vakir van Baskerville. In exchange, Kimu will relinquish control of her body to Seir for 1 hour a day and fall into a complete slumber. Additionally, Kimu is forbidden from revealing anything about Seir or demons to others. There were 2 powers lent by Seir. One is the ability to locate anything Kimu wants to find, and the other is the ability to bring back the dead. Even with Seir's powers, Kimu was able to find her sister Rose, who had been humiliated to death by barbarians, but locating the other person she wished to see proved difficult even for Seir. This is the first time I've encountered such a strange thing. I can't feel the soul of the one you speak of, not even a trace. Hearing this, Kimu didn't say much. All she knew was that giving up wasn't an option. After that, Kimu began to use the excuse of isolation training to take care of Rose, and at night she acted to find clues about me. As time passed, Kimu grew distant from her mother and uncle. Even so, she had no spare time to deal with this matter. She only wanted to focus all her energy on reuniting with me. However, one day, a strange guy suddenly found her hidden base. Although Kimu sternly asked who he was and what he wanted with her, the answer she got was, I'm not here to see you, human. Bring out Seir. He was Dantalion, the 9th elite corpse. Afterward, Kimu heard from Seir that Dantalion wanted a slave, so he took Rose and vanished. Once that guy Dantalion disappears, it's extremely difficult to find him again. I advise you not to waste your effort. Anyway, if Rose gets messed up, I will still fix her for you, so don't be angry anymore. But Kimu was furious. She realized that no matter what, a demon is still a demon. Unbeknownst to her, on the very day Kimu went to search for Rose, she encountered a miracle. It's been a while, Kimu Morgue. You've changed a lot since we last met. At that moment, Kimu's tears flowed freely. However, because of the contract, she couldn't unleash all the words that had been suppressed in her heart. She thought to herself, why are you saying things with such composure when it's been so long since we last saw each other, and you are still alive? Why didn't you come to find me? Do you know how hard I've worked all these years to find you? But before Kimu's thoughts could settle, I suddenly strode towards her. So what exactly has happened to you during this time? How did you end up making a contract with a demon? To my words, Kimu didn't respond at all. She knew she had no time left, and soon her body would be taken over by Seir. When that happens, I would surely fight Seir. However, Kimu don't want me to fight alone again. Thank you for recognizing me and finding me. This time, I give you a score of 100 out of 100. Just as Kimu finished speaking, countless spikes suddenly emerged around her and immediately struck her. Seeing this, I act recklessly. When Kimu saw blood flowing from my body, her eyes, which had just calmed down, welled up with tears again. What are you doing? I already don't have. But before Kimu could finish, I interrupted her. I have thought everything through clearly. It's because of your contract with the demon that you can't talk to me normally. You didn't deal a fatal blow while fighting me, and if ending your life was your way of telling me that you can't talk about it, then don't worry, leave the rest to me. I will never lose to a demon. Nice to meet you. So you are the so-called Vakir, right? I've heard a lot about you from my friend Kimu. I didn't plan to respond to these words. Instead, I questioned Seir. What happened to Kimu Morgue? Are you worried? Kimu is asleep inside me right now, since I have the right to take over her body for a day. And just as Seir finished speaking, four skeletons wielding weapons fiercely attacked me. As the sound of clashing metal rang out, it was clear I had reacted in time, narrowly avoiding being pierced by their attacks. Then, based on the surroundings, Seir concluded that this inherent barrier belonged to Andromalius. It seems you are the infamous demon hunter who killed my two comrades. At this point, Seir also had a question to ask me. How can there be humans in this world who know about us 10 elite corps? Plus, this is the first time I've had trouble finding a soul. Could it be that you don't actually exist in this world? After hearing what Seir said, I chose to remain silent. Who would have thought that my attitude would make Seir laugh? What a cold man. Will you answer me if I tell you Kimu's pitiful story? In order to see one man, she dared to use the forbidden complete resurrection spell, but of course, she failed. As a result, she was unable to move her body and lay on the floor for several days in an abandoned laboratory. She already tried everything and didn't have the will to live anymore. But do you know what's funny? She called me a demon, her new hope. After I made a contract with Kimu, it was really heartbreaking to hear her yearn for you. Vakir, I'm sorry I left you alone. If I hadn't been captured by the barbarians, you wouldn't have died. I should have been the one to die instead. If Vakir is somehow still alive, then why hasn't he come to find me? No, don't leave me alone. But before Seir could finish, I had already drawn Beelzebub, swinging it at her. Upon seeing this, Seir didn't even think to defend, just spread her hands wide, waiting for the attack to hit her. But I actually understood her reason, so I halted my strike. So, you're familiar with contracts made with demons. If I die, Kimu dies. At the same time, under the summoning of Seir's magic circle, a hellish skeleton dog with a gaping mouth suddenly sprang up. Realizing the danger, I immediately moved away, and after dodging the creature's attack, I launched a flurry of strikes with Beelzebub. However, my strikes couldn't inflict any damage on this hellish skeleton dog. Seeing this, Seir started mocking me. If you think you can chop it up like those creatures summoned by Kimu, if you think you can handle the creatures I summon, you're greatly mistaken. A mere graduator brat couldn't possibly cut through my original power. Immediately after, I was successfully hit by the hellish skeleton dog, and its force directly knocked me several kilometers away, smashing me onto a giant sword. Now, forget about saving Kimu. You're going to die by my hands. At this moment, I fell into deep self-blame. Kimu made a contract with a demon to save me. It was all because I chose to hide in the deep forest that she, who was meant to become a hero for humanity, ended up becoming a demon contractor. From the beginning, I knew that to kill a demon who has made a contract with a human, one must also eliminate that human. So why did I say I wouldn't lose to a demon? Was it just to comfort Kimu in her final moments? Just then, my left foot was suddenly tightly bound by Seir's extending tail. You seem deep in thought for someone in a fight. And as soon as these words fell, Seir fiercely swung its tail, smashing me hard against the statue of Osiris. However, even after such a heavy hit, my thoughts were still trapped between two difficult choices. Should I save Kimu Morg, or should I save the world? If I choose her and spare the demon Seir, mankind will face the time of the fall. But as I thought about it, I suddenly realized these weren't the most important issues right now. For me, as long as there is a glimmer of hope, I want to hold on to it. At the same time, seeing my distraught appearance, Seir didn't hesitate to acknowledge its own strength. I didn't expect that the 10th and 9th elite corpses would be eliminated by someone like you. Fakir van Baskerville, are you aware that you're the reason why opening the gate to the demon realm has been delayed? As Seir's claws pierced through my body, I could deeply feel it. This is the first time in a long time that I have felt such immense pain. At this moment, Seir continued to mockingly ask me, do you still want to save Kimu? You haven't been able to beat me from the start, let alone now that you're barely clinging to life. In the end, you're just a pathetic human who's hoping for a miracle to happen. Unlike usual, this time I gave a firm response. A miracle? I like the sound of that. In the next second, Seir was dumbfounded as I grabbed both of her horns with my hands. Although she barely came to her senses afterward, my head had already landed solidly on her fontanelle, rendering it unable to move. Kimu Morg, can you hear me? It's difficult for me to slice this demon down and save you all by myself. Resist the contract. Your contract with the demon that's binding your soul isn't absolute. Someone skilled in magic like you can do it. Your soul will burn as the price for resisting it. But in that moment, I'll strike this demon down. Let's make a miracle together. Hearing this, Seir thought I was insane. At the same time, she kicked me away, then ferociously swore to the sky, I will turn you into my undead soldier and make you work in place of the 10th and 9th elite corpses you killed. You'll bring humanity's destruction with your own hands. But no sooner had Seir finished speaking than I, with all my wounds healed, began walking toward her. But it really is odd. I always thought the letters from Hugo were just fantasies. I never thought that one day I would receive his help. Even if I lived another lifetime, I couldn't imagine it. Thank you, Father. At the same time, seeing me still have the energy, Seir finally revealed her ultimate form, ready to use all her strength to kill me. Little did she know, in my view, it's already too late, because at this moment, I was on the verge of becoming a sword master. I will definitely save you, Kimu Morg.